When they called the universities looking for a bilingual minority person, they were told that there were no graduates from the Latino community in television and radio or communications.
Coalition for Open Media, or whatever that was, that started this deal based on the population of the city reflecting itself in the population of the news department. That's how that whole thing started up, and there was a sort of a citywide search to find out what guy was going to be the guy, and there were several candidates.
I was actually working for a federal job training program, and the phone rang at home, and this deep voice says, "Hi, my name's Fred Lacoste. I'm the news director at KNTV." And I knew who he was because he was also the anchor. And for 2 or 3 seconds, I thought it was a joke.
Because he had never been inside of a television studio before. But I sensed in him some great natural skills.
And he said, "Your name has been submitted as someone who should talk about becoming a reporter. Would you be interested?" And I was interested before he called.
With me, brand new day, fresh new way to live. The morning is calling. What will me undo?
And we're, of course, seasoned journalists, and we're saying to ourselves, well, how can somebody without any training come in here and do this job?
My first story was 3.5 minutes.
So he not only comes in and does the job, he gets a lifetime award for it, you know. The rest of us are still standing around wondering what happened.
San Jose, Rigo Chacon, Channel 7 News.
You know, he's got that distinctive lockout, you know, Rigo Chacon, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, what's up with this guy, you know?
I say Rigo Chacon because my parents say Rigo Chacon.
Just a man made of blood and bone.
I'm assuming that because of my accent, the statements were written and said, "When are you going to learn how to speak English?" That kind of statement. Some written in very cruel language. I've had a career that I'm happy with, but it's interesting to me that I've never been able to shake the pain of those days. But I never shook the impact of that. 32 years later, it still hurts. It still hurts. It hurts to talk about it.
This is the community of Janos, Chihuahua. I was born here. In fact, I was born in this room only a few years back. And since I left, very little has changed. People here still speak of something called hope.
We weren't severely poverty-stricken, but we weren't well off. My dad and my mom were simply hard-working people who ran a store. And one day, things got tough, and we left and moved to the big city. Juarez, across the border from El Paso. And when things got tough there, we moved to El Paso. And then when things got tough there, we came to California to pick crops. And I'm glad that happened. I'm not glad that we went through rough times. I'm glad that we came to California. Because I have 2 hometowns.
Mother, there's too many of you.
They call it the Rigo story. The Rigo story was a people story. He was a great, there was nobody better telling a people story, you know.
Everything that Rigo brought to work, not having any journalism training, he learned from his mom and dad. He learned manners, he learned diplomacy, he learned tact, he learned style, he learned how to be with people and how to, and he learned empathy.
I'd like to tell you a story about human courage.
I met him when he was 7 years old. And Marco Cordova, who was born with severe disabilities, but with a brilliant mind and a beautiful heart, had a lasting impact on me. I love that little kid. The Aviso flood was a tragedy that, in the end, drew a beautiful picture of people responding to help others.
The earthquake struck early in the morning, and almost immediately the biggest city in the world was forced to react to one of the great tragedies in its history.
Mexico City, 1985, was a picture of sadness,
This was the scene inside
courage,
a stadium. Search for
and human compassion, all in the same setting.
This is how we described what was for these people an awful reality. The earthquake left behind thousands of shocking stories, but none so gripping as the one inside this baseball stadium. The people who come here are from the start facing hopelessness. They'll either go through the heartbreak of identifying a dead loved one, or they'll leave with a devastating sense of despair and uncertainty. Thousands died in the rubble. Much of the story of Mexico City was told through the eyes of survivors. These were the faces of despair. These were the faces of fear. These were also the faces of hope and courage.
You consider that thousands of people responded to the mountains of rubble to ask if they could help in the rescue. That's heroism, that's commitment, that's love of humanity. That's what I saw in Mexico City. The organization, the willingness to help, the willingness to risk life to save life was a powerful, powerful experience for me.
For the children of Mexico, there was also a challenge. Their classrooms were gone. Their desire to learn was not. And under
the Bay Area saw the reports that we brought back from Mexico City, and in large numbers said, we want to help. And they mailed collectively $1.3 million to us.
You know, most reporters, it's just a story. You'd go down there, and do the story, and that would be it. But with Rigo, it doesn't end there.
Some of those funds were used to rebuild 2 elementary schools in 2 communities outside of Mexico City, and the gratitude expressed by the children of that community was incredibly moving.
Y compañeros de la escuela y maestros que se encuentran y del director, les damos las gracias a habernos mandado a esta escuela, que gracias a esto podemos estudiar, porque si no, ¿quién nos iba a sacar adelante? Gracias a ustedes, señor Rigo Chacón y gabinete. Gracias.
They were eloquent, they were sincere, they were grateful, and they expressed it as only children can express gratitude. And it prompted something in me to say, after I'm done with this assignment, I want to come back and help these kids. And that's what prompted Abrazos and Books as far as the Mexico part of raising money for scholarships. I was already involved to some degree in raising money for scholarships here. It simply formalized it into an international effort. When I was a child in Janos, Chihuahua, the little town where I was born, I remember one day when a gentleman was passing out backpacks to the children of Janos. So my dad had bought the backpacks for those children. Even though I was a child, I remember being emotionally affected by the fact that my father was responsible for handing out something that was helping children. I often think that that's when Abrazos and Books was born.